to me. You know,
You're
an educator, and now you're a degreed man. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you working at a school.
Yes.
Okay. You didn't just leave high school and walk up to that school says, I want a job, and they say, yeah, you look like a teacher. Here, take this job.
Kinda.
That's kind of
Kinda had happened.
That's kind of how it happened.
But I couldn't actually get the pay I deserved, or actually get the responsibility that goes with it until I had the credentials to go there.
I see.
So until then, I was more of an apprentice.
I see. Yeah.
I showed interest, and they kept me around until I was able to stay.
So your papers dictated your increase.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're increasing in income and you're increasing knowledge.
Yeah, and debt.
And
because you got to pay for that degree.
Yeah, you do. Well, that's good. So let's chime in here.
Okay.
There's a question that's asked amongst the race of people about the color scheme of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Are there black people in the Bible? Is there a black presence? Okay. And then someone asks, a black person asks, well, is there a white presence?
Well, I think it's black and white.
Absolutely.
Look at the ink.
Mm-hmm. Look at the paper. The paprika. I got you. And that's true. But we're talking about mankind there.
Yes, sir. No, I believe there's a black presence in the Bible.
I do believe too.
The problem many people have is they look at the pages of Scripture and they never look at the topographical study that goes with it.
Okay.
They never look at the geographic or topographical location of where these events actually took place. And when you do that, you gain a better understanding. When it says he ran from this location to that location, when you look at the layout of the land, or when you look at what does this land look like then, as well as what does it look like now, it's hard not to believe there's a black presence in the Bible.
Sure.
Then you have to look at the Bible through the lens of geographic study and social study. What was the social climate of that day? What was the for lack of a better word, how did the people really behave then? Do some research beyond the scriptures. And what I'm saying is not that the scripture isn't enough, but the writers gave you an overview. But when you do extra biblical study and survey the land in that period, it gives deeper understanding of what the application should be for today.
That's good. And that's something that needs, I think, every Bible study, whether it's at your church or at your home, you need to go into the origin of the scripture first.
And those maps in the back of the Bible have purpose,
They
not
do
just
have
to show you the red line of where he walked.
Yeah, that's true.
How far? Look at the map
Yeah.
scales. Look at the look at the lay of the land.
And you can read a secular geographical historical book, or and take the Bible and put them both together, and they both make sense.
And you'll find parallels.
Absolutely.
Which makes it hard to really discredit the Bible.
Which well, God, the one of the greatest scriptures I know to man is a fool says in his heart
that there is no
God. We're gonna do some reading. You're gonna do some reading,
okay?
And I'll do some. And then when I'm reading, I'm gonna ask you, do you agree or disagree?
Okay.
The vast majority. This is from an article. The vast majority of the Bible took place in the Middle East, in and around Israel, of course. Neither black nor white people are common in these regions. Right. The vast majority of the people in the Bible were Semitic, light to brown in complexion. Ultimately, it does not matter what color the people are in the Bible, but skin color is meaningless in the message. We understand that. Okay, but some scholars guess that Moses' wife, Zipporah, might have been black since she was a Cushite. Right, that's in Numbers 12. And Cush is an ancient name for an area of Africa. The Shulamite may have been black in Solomon when she says, I'm black but comely. Although the context indicates that her skin was dark due to sunlight. She was out in the sun too long. All right. Some say she was dark. When she said she was dark, it was an expression that she might have made. All right. That's when, that was a little reaching a little bit, but I
they reached pretty far.
They reached. Okay. And the average person who's a proponent for a black presence in the Bible, they'll go there to that Shulamite woman to say, see, there's the black people, and that means if she's black, that means everybody around there was black. Okay, and I hear a lot of black Israelites always go there, and they're very dogmatic about it. as if to say we are the superior race. And I think we sometimes do the opposite of what the white supremacists do when we try to bring out black power. I think we overly do it just as much as they are.
I think they are. I mean, it's full extremes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Full extremes, because it's all biologically. You stay in a geographic region long enough, there's going to be some physiological adjustments made so that you can survive comfortably.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's true. There's an adaptation that happens in the body. You know, I look at my father, Lawrence Jones. He's a carpenter, been a carpenter all my life and beyond, okay? And his body have adapted to that environment of sawdust, and his hands are so calloused that he can almost take a nail without a hammer and nail it with his hands. That's how callous his hand is. His eye, what do you call this area here?
The brow.
The brow.
The
the socket that goes over the eye. His sockets it protrudes over the eye like a
sun visor.
Mm-hmm. It's a sun visor because he's always around dust and what have you. That his body began to develop around his environment. It's an amazing thing.
Yes.
So some propose that Bathsheba was black. Some believe that the Queen of Sheba, who visited Solomon, was black. The Ethiopian eunuch, because of course whenever you say Ethiopian, that's a dead giveaway.
So far all the locations you've given can be dead giveaways.
The Ethiopian eunuch was likely black. Ethiopians are mentioned about 40 times in the Bible, and the prophet Jeremiah asks, can the Ethiopian change his skin? That's in Jeremiah 13:23.
Yes.
Simon called Niger. And when we were kids, we used to say, yes. In Acts 13:1, may have been black. The Bible, though, does not specifically say that any of these people were black, but it's obvious from your
It may not have
studies.
been an issue then. It may not have been an issue of melanin. Skin tone, I think, is a recent phenomena, or maybe I should say due to the Greek exploration. And when the Greeks began to migrate into the region, they used Greek words for descriptive purposes. And whereas you have this hieroglyphics, that's Greek, when it's really the meta-nature. When you have certain words, and those words carry on based on the dominant culture of that day. So many of the faces may have looked like yours and mine. I mean, if you go over there, you'll see the indigenous people have a different look than what we see in books, or for that matter. So yes, there were mixed races because there was no race. It was a culture. It was a group. It was a family name, I think. So, but that's just me from a humanity's perspective when I look at scripture.
That's good. Good.
I remember being in the hospital, and a Indian woman from India said I look like her uncles.
Wow.
And when some of them are darker than we are.
Yeah.
They just have the curlier hair, and they talk with a little different accent. I mean, but you think about it. Humans are humans.
Yeah. That's true. And there are blacks on every continent.
Every continent, because of migration.
Migration, yeah.
Because of chattel slavery.
Absolutely.
And there are whites on every continent, too, because of exploration.
Yeah.
And for the same reasons.
I lived in Humboldt Park here in Chicago, which is a heavily Puerto Rican community.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And they had a Puerto Rican fest.
Oh, God.
And I stood in that fest, okay, with all these people, and I turned to my right, and there was a man blacker than me, dark.
Yes.
And I said, oh, okay, there's another brother here.
No, he was.
I said, hey, and he said, how does that
Yes.
He went to speak in
Spanish.
I said, whoa, bro, you ain't one of me.
I've been to Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And I wish my Spanish was better. I could have really adapted. Yeah.
If you're out there, I don't need you to interpret what I just said, because
he wasn't trying to talk about your mama. He just made an accident. He didn't know what he was saying.
Yeah. So we're all over the place. Okay. So what information do you have?
Well, before we go there, I see us all over the place as a reflection of the omnipotence of God.
That's good.
Now, historically, they say Java man was first. When you look at the island of Java, you would have to suggest that man's skin was dark. Now, the question comes into playing is, when did the customs and cultures change to clearly define and distinctly identify the races of people or the groups of people? And with those questions, you have several answers for. Then it breaks down into the haves and the have-nots based upon really material gain and technological prowess. Because if you got the technology, you will take over. So when it comes to us as black men being cursed, it was a suggestion based upon what some believe was interracial marriage even.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I'm trying to look. I was just looking at it. What's his name? Robert Jameson, A.R. Fawcett, and David Brown. They said Canaan was cursed due to the fact that and identified the descendants of Canaan as the Africans in the slave trade. And of course that caused a whole bunch of confusion. So many rebutted and said, well, could it be because of the interracial mixture that came as a result? And the story keeps going backwards and forward because people was trying to trace the genealogy of the people mentioned in the text. And yes, you can make those connections, but it wasn't an accurate one because it didn't fit all of the criteria to come up with a justifiable solution to that problem. So a churchman about 1,500 years ago, Ambrosiaster, applied it to thus saying, due
Bronia Scott.
Wow, stretch. Okay. No, Ambrosiaster.
Oh, okay.
He applied it to thus saying, due to folly, Ham, who foolishly ridiculed the nakedness of his father, was declared a slave. And then John F. Maxwell observed his recent book, Slavery in the Catholic Church. This disastrous example of fundamental exegesis or explanation continued to be used for 1,400 years and led to the widely held view that African Negroes were cursed by God. Now, I did not know until doing this research that the Catholic Church thought we were cursed.
Absolutely.
And that's very painful.
Sure it is.
Because there are a lot of Catholics that are African American.
Yes, there are. And that's not just before time. Some of them still believe that we are cursed. I've heard them out of my own.
Well, some evidence. I can understand how they would take it based upon the choices we accept and make. Some of the things that are done now in the African American community, or even in the black community worldwide.
Yes. Did you see the video of the preacher who said that the pastor was in the pulpit and he said he would never marry any of his congregation to a black person? He says, any of you members here, bring some black woman in here, and you say, I will never do it.
Wow.
And it was all on Facebook, and I was like, this is 2014, and this is still going on.
Well, hatred ain't going nowhere until until the world is done.
We thought hatred died when Obama got in office. I said, y'all crazy.
It
stirred it up.
In fact, you're seeing an influx of further mistreatment now because they shut back for a minute and say, oh, we got a black president, we better be careful. They say, oh, he about to go out of office now.
Yeah.
Back to business as usual.
Back to business as usual. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. They don't have to worry about the attack is not as hard. It doesn't have to be now because he'll be gone in a few minutes. So yeah, you had something that you had on the historics of the whole, because what we want to bring out is the reason why I use the word curse is because the whole Noah thing. Now, I will say this. There's two things that we have to examine in this whole racial, the color scheme of the entire world. When God created Adam, he put all the colors in him. Okay, everything in him, when he created him, was there. And I'm going to say this also a very controversial thing, too. Y'all going to look at me funny. Of course, you can. You have to look at your radios and your iPhones.
The picture.
They've
been doing that already.
Adam was formed. There was no one there but him. Okay? Well, there was. He was the last thing formed because he was formed on that last day and then got arrested after that. That means all the animals, they were created before him.
Right. They were here first.
Yeah. So what I mean, what I mean about when I say he was the only one, meaning he was the only man. Although that's if you are the other people who believe in the antediluvian, meaning they were races before him.
The pre-Adamites.
In chapter 1, and that's another study that we have to do next time.